Doctors come by the thousands to Dr. B's hospitals to learn how to replicate his approach. They carry Orolab's work and the gift of sight to every corner of the world. In Kenya, another social entrepreneur is struggling to have the same impact with the most unlikely of inventions. In sub-Saharan Africa, millions of people survive as subsistence farmers, a daily existence supported only by the meager crops grown on small family farms. Dreams of a better life rest on one simple need: water. However, the cost of irrigation pumps is far beyond the reach of farmers, making little more than $1 a day. But a former Stanford University engineer thinks he's found the answer.
Nestled on the edge of Lake Victoria in western Kenya is the bustling city of Kisumu. Several kilometers outside of town, Frederick Ahenda lives with his wife and children. Like most Kenyans, Frederick is very poor, but he is one of the few who has a job.
I'm a teacher by profession. I'm married with 9 kids. Pay of teachers is very low in Kenya, and as such, it's not enough to sustain the family.
Fred subsidizes his meager salary by growing a few crops across the street from where he lives, but he's still mired in poverty. There's just not enough to feed, clothe, and educate his children. He is a man of great pride and determination, a man who would prefer to help himself rather than ask for a handout. John Kihaya spends most of his time driving all over Kenya, bringing hope to people like Fred Ahenda.
The Kenyan population as of the last census was 30 million. Out of the 30 million, 56% live at $1 a day. That means that about 18 million Kenyans live at $1 a day. The only thing that they have is land and themselves. Unless they increase the productivity of this land, then these people are doomed.
Seven out of 10 Kenyans are subsistence farmers. They're dependent on 1 or 2 acres of land they either own or occupy for their entire livelihood. Kenyans are known for their entrepreneurial spirit, but they need affordable tools to help lift themselves out of poverty.
Poor people would want to work. Nobody would want to be called poor. Nobody would want to remain poor. But many people remain poor because they do not have access to technologies that would make it possible for them to use their energy, their intellect, their other resources more productively.
John Kihaya works for a company called Aprotech, headquartered in the capital city of Nairobi.
So did you watch me yesterday, the other day, demonstrating the different way of pumping with this? Yeah, well, we're pumping using the hip instead of using the arms.
Martin Fisher and Nick Moon, the co-founders of the company, have been trying to help the small farmers of Kenya work themselves out of poverty for the past 20 years.
People here have a huge amount of labor, a huge amount of time, but they don't have money. Usually we think of poor people in Africa and, oh, they need health care, they need clean water, they need all these other things. But actually they need a way to make a living, to make money.
I think what prevents them from providing for themselves is a lack of opportunity, not a lack of will or a lack of motivation or a lack of skill.
Fisher and Moon first invented a low-cost machine to make building bricks to construct inexpensive housing. Then they designed a machine which presses sunflower seeds into cooking oil. But it was a manual water pump which presented the best chance for success.
As we went on, we realized, well, really the key to economic growth in a country like Kenya lies in the agricultural sector. This is where quite clearly the competitive advantage of this country lies. It's an agricultural economy.
But there's a problem, because the only way to get irrigation is to pump water. And the petrol pumps are far too expensive. No one has electricity, so electric pumps can't work. So what they needed was a manually operated irrigation pump, which would allow them to irrigate using what they have in excess, which is their labor.
One day, 250 kilometers away from Nairobi, Fred Ahenda was making one of his daily trips into Kisumu.
I frequent coming to town, so as I usually pass along the streets, I have been hearing about the Aprotex, the pumps that the Aprotex people make. So as I see them demonstrate, I developed some interest.
But the pump he was looking at cost $78, an astronomical sum by Kenyan standards. Where do people who can live on less than $1 a day come up with $78 to buy a pump?
Once these poor people are convinced that the pump would work well, then they are able either to sell some of their assets at home, it could be their livestock, or some harvest that they had put aside for food, knowing that if they buy the pump, they'll be able to get back what it is that they sold, or they're able to pay back the money that they borrowed from their friends.
Fred had taken out a loan to pay for school for his kids, and he made an agonizing decision to use the money instead to buy a pump. He decided to save money and not buy the most expensive one.
So when I got a small loan, I said the first priority is to have the smallest pump. Even if I have to exchange, then that could be later. But I wanted at least a pump to help me make something out of the garden.
As Fred went off to set up his pump for the first time, he was optimistic about his chances of making money. His pump had come with a 12-month guarantee and a form which provides Aprotec with enough information for John Kahaya to check on the economic progress of his customers.
He's able to plant 10,000 tomatoes. He's able to get 48,000 shillings. 8,000 is cost of production.
Cost of production.
So
checking on their customers' progress is crucial to Aprotec's philosophy of helping people help themselves.
We must take a business-like approach to the business of development. Otherwise, we're going to be locked forever in this cycle of handouts and giveaways and sort of bleeding heart social welfare programs.
I'm coming to visit Johnson Duarte, who bought his pump in 1999, and I want to come and see what he's been doing with the pump. The last time I saw him was growing tomatoes, butternuts, and French beans.
How was your life 5 years ago before having this pump, and how are you doing in your daily life?
Life was a struggle. We had to struggle in almost everything. We had to look for casual labor in construction to make our ends meet. I was trying to do casual labor jobs as an artisan in construction. and sometimes had to grow tomatoes through irrigation by using a bucket and water can. It was so difficult because we had to use lots of our own energy. Later, I decided to concentrate on agriculture production even by using inferior watering cans.
So we visit them, and we've developed tools by which we can measure their socioeconomic profile. And then 18 months later, we'll go back and see them again. And so we're able to track the changes that take place in this sample, in their lives.
So when you were using a water bucket for irrigation, how much were you growing?
I was only able to grow 800 seedlings in total.
And how many seedlings can you grow now?
At the moment, with this machine, I can pump enough water, and so I grow up to 10,000 seedlings.
How many hours do you spend watering the plants?
I use 1 hour to water all the plants.
How many hours were you watering the plants before you bought the pump?
I used the whole day.
And the economic changes in Johnson Doherty's life have been just as dramatic.
I have bought milking cows and built a piggery unit, and I think in this way I am progressing. I have set my life into farming, and by concentrating, I have built a modern house of 3 rooms worth 40,000 shillings. I would not do that without pump intervention.
On average, people's farm income is going up by a factor of 10 when they get one of these pumps. It's transforming their lives, moving them from poverty into the middle class. And if you look at the problems in Africa and other developing countries, the only solution is to create a middle class.
So far, Aprotech has sold 32,000 pumps. According to Fisher and Moon, each one is making a big impact on poor people's lives. But it's still a tough sell.
If these things, you could sell these things and make money, sell these big ticket items to very, very poor people in poor countries and make money, all sorts of big companies would be jumping in and doing this. It's not happening. Why is it not happening? It's not happening because the cost of sales is so high, it's so hard to reach these poor people with these products and to convince them to buy.
Aprotech, which is non-profit, relies on 70% of its operating budget to come from subsidies, much of which is used for a media campaign.
So it needs a big investment of money to launch this product into the market, to draw people's attention to it. And remember, we are talking about a rural population who are scattered all over the country. Infrastructure here is really poor. It's very expensive to get down these rutted tracks and roads and so on and reach these people where they are. They're also, by virtue of being poor, money poor, they are risk averse.
We didn't have any land. We didn't have anything at all.
And how did you get the farm?
We started renting land from somebody, and immediately we started growing tomatoes through irrigation by using water buckets. We did this for a long time, until one day we went to sell our tomatoes at the big market. Then we saw the advertisement of a moneymaker pump on TV.
Recently, the sales curve for the water pumps has been going up. Aprotech founders Fisher and Moon believe they are on the verge of a breakthrough.
Last year we sold 10,000 of these pumps, and that represented, if I remember right, a sort of 30-ish% growth on the previous year, and there was a 30% growth on the year before that. So we're satisfied with the trend that we see, but we also feel that we are just scratching at the surface of the potential here. We started up a program in Tanzania about 3 years ago. It worked really well there, and that's what's encouraged us to suppose that this model is replicable in many countries, particularly of sub-Saharan Africa, where the economic conditions and the commercial and physical infrastructure are very, very comparable.
Big dreamers take big risks. In order to replicate their program throughout Africa, Martin Fisher and Nick Moon are trying to raise $20 million for marketing campaigns and a full-scale expansion.
We're saying that people who might previously have been seen or categorized as liabilities on the national books of account, what we're saying is no. We recognize them for what they are assets. We're not looking at a problem here, we're looking at an opportunity waiting to happen.
The risk for Fred Ahenda is just as great. He's hoping his pump will provide him with a surplus of crops. And if all goes well, he'll use the extra money to pay off his loan and to make a better life for his family.
My dream is to educate my children because I don't have any happiness if my children can't go to school. My dream is to have a better house. From the supplements of the farm produce, I believe I'll be able to make my dreams come true. Building a good house for my family and leading a decent life.
Nestled on the edge of Lake Victoria in western Kenya is the bustling city of Kisumu. Several kilometers outside of town, Frederick Ahenda lives with his wife and children. Like most Kenyans, Frederick is very poor, but he is one of the few who has a job.
I'm a teacher by profession. I'm married with 9 kids. Pay of teachers is very low in Kenya, and as such, it's not enough to sustain the family.
Fred subsidizes his meager salary by growing a few crops across the street from where he lives, but he's still mired in poverty. There's just not enough to feed, clothe, and educate his children. He is a man of great pride and determination, a man who would prefer to help himself rather than ask for a handout.
Doctors come by the thousands to Dr. B's hospitals to learn how to replicate his approach. They carry Orolab's work and the gift of sight to every corner of the world. In Kenya, another social entrepreneur is struggling to have the same impact with the most unlikely of inventions. In sub-Saharan Africa, millions of people survive as subsistence farmers, a daily existence supported only by the meager crops grown on small family farms. Dreams of a better life rest on one simple need: water. However, the cost of irrigation pumps is far beyond the reach of farmers making little more than $1 a day. But a former Stanford University engineer thinks he's found the answer.